Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to constantly explain yourself, to justify your feelings, to defend your boundaries, to make people understand why you are the way you are? It always starts with good intention. You want connection. You want harmony. You want to be understood. But somewhere along the line, the explanation becomes a performance. You shapeshift. You soften. You rationalize your truth until it becomes palatable to others. And in the process, you disappear. Carl Jung would tell you this: the need to explain is not clarity. It's a form of self-abandonment. Because the moment you begin over-explaining, you're already assuming that who you are is unacceptable unless proven otherwise. You step out of yourself. You leave your energetic center. You hand over your authority to someone else's approval. And that, Jung would say, is a betrayal of the self. When you feel compelled to explain, it's not just words you're offering, it's energy. Psychic energy, emotional bandwidth, spiritual presence. Over-explaining is an unconscious way of asking, "Do you still accept me?" It's a way of begging for permission to exist. But what if you stopped? What if you let the silence speak for you? What if your boundary didn't come with a backstory? What if your no was a full sentence? That's where power lives. That's where alignment begins. That's when everything starts to shift. Let's go deeper into what over-explaining really is. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior stems from unconscious archetypes, patterns of energy shaped by culture, history, and personal experience. One of those archetypes is the wounded child. This is the part of you that learned early on: if I explain myself well enough, maybe they won't leave. If I prove that I'm good, maybe I'll be accepted. So every time you find yourself typing a long message, rehearsing your tone, editing your truth to make it easier for someone else to hear, you're not just communicating. You're reenacting a survival pattern. You're trying to feel safe. But safety built on performance is fragile. It creates a version of you that exists only in the minds of others. And you become addicted to managing those perceptions. Here's the cost: you lose your center. Jung taught that the goal of individuation, the psychological process of becoming whole, is not to be understood by everyone. It's to understand yourself deeply enough that misunderstanding no longer threatens you. When you explain yourself constantly, you leak energy. You give away power with every paragraph. You sacrifice sovereignty for validation. And worst of all, you begin to believe that your truth requires negotiation. But the self doesn't negotiate. The self doesn't perform. It doesn't audition. It doesn't beg. It simply is. And the more you embody that, the more your presence speaks louder than your explanations ever could. Let's ground this in energy. Think of your energy like currency. You only have so much to spend each day. Some of it goes to work, some to creativity, some to relationships, some to healing. But over-explaining is like having a hole in your wallet. Every time you defend who you are, you bleed energy. And it's not just physical exhaustion, it's psychic depletion. You feel drained after a conversation, not because it was long, but because it required you to abandon yourself repeatedly. You explained why you needed space. You explained why something hurt. You explained your tone, your silence, your decisions, and somewhere in all that explanation, you disappeared. Here's a radical reframe. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing. You don't owe an explanation for your boundaries. You don't owe an explanation for your joy, your pace, your energy, your voice. You owe yourself honesty. You owe your nervous system peace. You owe your inner child safety. Jung would say, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are doesn't need to be explained to be real. People who are safe for your nervous system won't require a thesis for your feelings. People who resonate with your truth won't ask you to translate it into their language. You will not need to defend yourself in spaces meant for your growth. You will not need to apologize for being what you are. And when you finally stop over-explaining, you realize most of what you were trying to protect wasn't your truth. It was your fear of losing connection. But real connection can survive your silence. Let's now move from insight to application. Because knowing the problem is not enough. You must rewire the pattern. Here are 3 practices to help you stop over-explaining and start reclaiming your energy. 1. The 5-word boundary practice. When someone challenges your truth, resist the urge to explain. Instead, respond with a sentence of 5 words or less. For example, I'm not available right now. I don't feel aligned. This doesn't work for me. I'm not continuing this. Then stop. Breathe. Don't fill the silence. Don't soften the edge. Let your words stand like a mountain. Why 5 words? Because it forces clarity. No justifying, no spiraling, no detour into performance. You're training your system to trust that short and true is enough. 2. The mirror rehearsal. Before a difficult conversation, practice saying your truth into a mirror without softening it. Observe your body. Notice where you tense, where you flinch, where you shrink. Then say it again and again until your voice holds. You're not just practicing the words. You're rewiring your nervous system to feel safe in self-expression. This is psychological weightlifting. Each repetition builds internal strength. 3. The journal of unsent explanations. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, write it out in a journal instead of sending it. Pour it all out, every justification, every nuance. Then read it back and ask, do I really need to say all this to protect who I am? You'll find more often than not, the explanation was not for clarity, it was for safety. But you're safe now, because you choose yourself. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear, it gains power in the shadow. And for many people, silence is what's been repressed. Not the silence of withdrawal, but the silence of self-assurance. The silence of not needing to prove. Because we're taught from a young age that silence is suspicious. That if we don't explain ourselves, we're guilty. That if we don't defend ourselves, we're weak. But the truth is, silence is power. Not silence rooted in fear, but silence rooted in clarity. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't shrink you. It centers you. There's a kind of stillness that doesn't hide you. It reveals you. And when you stop explaining, you stop negotiating your presence. You stop asking, do you see me? Do you get me? Do you agree with me? And you start asking, am I standing in my truth? Am I honoring my energy? Am I safe in my own body? Jung's path of individuation isn't loud. It's subtle. It's internal. It's sacred. And it often involves withdrawing your energy from places that never saw you clearly in the first place. That's not cold. That's evolution. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Breathe. Place your hand over your chest and ask, am I trying to connect? Or am I trying to be acceptable? Because connection built on performance isn't connection, it's survival. You're not here to survive being misunderstood. You're here to live fully, even if they never get it. You've now arrived at a threshold. You can keep explaining, keep negotiating your truth, keep offering disclaimers, keep packaging your needs in a way that makes others comfortable. Or you can choose something different. You can choose to let your energy speak for itself. You can choose to let your silence set the boundary. You can choose to trust that who you are does not require defense. You are not a case to be made. You are not a product to be marketed. You are not a version of yourself waiting for someone's approval. You are a living embodiment of your values, your pain, your vision, your healing. And not everyone will understand that. But that was never the point. Understanding is optional. Alignment is sacred. So, here's the final practice. The energetic closing statement. Choose one belief that you often feel compelled to explain. Maybe it's your boundary, your pace, your healing, your dream. Now, write a single sentence about it that requires no justification, no context, no apology. Speak it aloud, as a spell, as a truth, as a flag planted firmly in the ground of your soul. Because this is the new pattern. You don't chase clarity from others. You create it within. You don't manage perception. You embody presence. You don't beg for understanding. You stand in self-respect. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But once you do, everything changes. You don't need to explain anymore. You just need to be." What's one truth you're ready to stop explaining to the world and simply live?